Apa
How are
kabar?
you, Kartini? Baik, baik.
Baik.
Lagi libur Idul Adha ya di sana ya?
Lagi libur Idul Adha ya.
I see. Gimana kalau situasi di sana terkait pandemi gini gimana, Tin?
Lebih baik sepertinya dari Indonesia ya, karena kita udah apa? Lockdownnya udah relax dari sekitar 3 minggu lalu. Jadi orang udah bisa keluar, udah bisa ke shopping mall, tapi ke kantor belum semuanya. Gitu.
I
Karena
see,
kasusnya
I
juga
see.
udah turun drastis dari ratusan sekarang cuma di bawah 10.
Everyday tambahnya cuma di bawah 10?
Yeah, yes,
Wow, itu
around that. Maybe
excellent dong.
maximum 21. I think the highest was 21, which was last week. Tapi the rest like
Oke.
below 10, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Kita sapa
Hmm,
dulu nih yang baru join nih. Saya lihat ada
yes.
tadi ada nama Deddy Suwartono. Halo semuanya ya yang baru join. Ya, jadi Gold Talks kita kali ini menghadirkan Kartini. Mungkin saya bacain dulu CV-nya ya. Kartini ini dulu sama-sama dengan saya di Universitas Indonesia, jurusan
Hmm.
akuntansi. Nanti kita akan ngobrol-ngobrol kenapa jurusan akuntansi bisa jadi seorang business director di sebuah leading uh, agency in the world ya. Kemudian beliau menghabiskan 7 tahun di Mediacom, baru kemudian di 2 tahun terakhir di Mindshare ya.
Mindshare ya, tuh.
Mau cerita-cerita sedikit Tin tentang your
Hmm.
career journey from graduating as an accounting graduate and then
Hmm.
why marketing and why advertising
Hmm.
agency or media agency like I said.
Oke. Eh, Ceritanya mungkin dulu kuliah sama dengan junior, kita kuliah di FEUI, jurusan
Ya,
akuntansi. Dulu saya juga bergabung di SPA, Studi Profesionalisme Akuntansi, yang termasuk himpunan mahasiswa akuntansi di FEUI. Waktu itu saya pernah ngeran acara, namanya, it's actually free one day seminar, but I remember the concept is accounting is not equal to accountant. That's actually the first event that I hosted. Waktu itu kita undang beberapa speaker yang lulusan FEUI akuntansi tapi kerjanya tidak jadi akuntan, even tidak jadi finance. Justru waktu itu tuh salah satu yang membuka mata saya bahwa oh, jadi apa, lulusan akuntansi sebenarnya tidak perlu bekerja sebagai akuntan, tidak perlu bekerja sebagai investment banker, tidak perlu bekerja di bank. Banyak banyak sebenarnya profesi-profesi lain yang bisa dilakukan sebagai lulusan akuntansi. Jadi itu sebenarnya cerita awalnya kenapa dari akuntansi pindah ke marketing. Mainly juga karena passion utama adalah marketing. Dulu sebenarnya maunya masuknya manajemen, tapi disuruh orang tua masuknya akuntansi, which I never regret. I'm so glad I learned accounting. Uh, tapi ya akhirnya lulus akuntansi, lulus dari FEUI, sempat magang di Toyota 2 bulan, 2 bulan 3 bulan. Magang di Toyota jadi ngurusin account payable, account receivable, reconciliation. I still remember that. And it was so boring. It was so boring. I'm like, oh my god, I cannot live for the rest of my life doing all of this accounting like this for the rest of my life. So I decided no. The moment I graduated, I decided to immediately work in creative agency back then. It was a boutique creative agency. Uh, Yori Sebastian ownernya. Jadi saya kerja di situ hampir 1,5 tahun. Bener mulai dari titik nol, belajar marketing, belajar semuanya tentang marketing dari nol. Dari itu sempat pindah ke Kompas Gramedia, jadi marketing timnya juga Kompas Gramedia. Setelah Kompas Gramedia pindah ke namanya media agency juga, namanya Draft FCB di Jakarta. Setelah itu baru pindah ke Mediacom di Jakarta. Pindah ke Mediacom di Jakarta, kerja selama 3,5 tahun, hampir 4 tahun. Nah dari situ barulah saya ditransfer ke Malaysia. Ada opportunity untuk ditugaskan di Malaysia, saya terima. Nah sekarang masih di Malaysia.
I see.
Hmm.
So you spend most of your career justru sekarang di I think half-half ya di Malaysia
Hmm.
dan di Indonesia ya.
Yes, yes. I think Malaysia sekarang udah 5 tahun lebih. Nggak kerasa udah 5 tahun lebih, lama banget. Yes.
Tin, mungkin you bisa highlight atau
Hmm.
enlight teman-teman kita semua nih. Kira-kira
Hmm.
kalau di dunia agency itu memang
Hmm.
pembagiannya kayak gimana sih? Like I don't know, tapi maybe for me sih I'm very familiar with Mindshare. What is Mindshare? What is Mediacom?
Hmm.
Tapi mungkin sebagian orang kayak, oh, what are they? What are you doing, guys? I mean, bisa di
Yeah.
online nggak sih kayak?
So I think first thing first, media agency is a part of the advertising agency, okay? But I just want to correct the perception. Media agency kita nggak ngerjain apa tuh iklan, kita nggak bikin iklan, kita nggak bikin TV, kita nggak bikin iklan yang yang kalian lihat di TV, di Facebook, gitu. Kita nggak bikin itu. Yang kita lakuin adalah sebagai media agency, kita merekomendasikan ke klien kita channel-channel yang tepat untuk mentargetkan target audiens kita gitu. Misalnya contoh saya mau target junior, saya mau target mahasiswa muda nih 18 sampai 24 tahun. Nah, saya sebagai media agency saya akan bilang junior, I think you should go to Facebook, TikTok, this channel that will be the best channel combinations to target this audience. So that's basically what I'm doing as a media agency, specifically as a media planner.
Apart from media agency, media planner, and then media buying, emang biasanya ada apalagi sih kalau let's say I'm a brand and I want to run a campaign gitu ya, gue pengen reaching my audience. Tadi kan you sempat singgung ada yang bikin iklannya tuh, terus berarti itu kan ada satu pihak sendiri tuh. Nah, selain itu ada apa lagi gitu, mungkin bisa ceritain.
Oh, oke. Mungkin gampangnya dari campaign kali ya. Misalnya saya punya klien nih. Mungkin kliennya Gold Talks lah. Mungkin laku emas lah. Kliennya laku emas ya. Oke, kliennya laku emas. Klien saya junior ya. Junior punya misalnya dua agensi. Satu creative agency, terus media agency. Creative agency mungkin, let's say Ogilvy, oke? Ogilvy, media agency Mindshare. So what we do is basically we work together. And we recommend as the agency, creative agency, Ogilvy, and media agency is Mindshare. We recommend to Laku Emas, kita rekomendasikan ke Laku Emas, ini loh media strategi, ini loh campaign, rekomendasi campaign terbaik untuk Laku Emas, untuk dapat mentargetkan target audience dari si Laku Emasnya sendiri. Gitu. Spesifiknya, misalnya, saya mau campaign, misalnya Laku Emas mau ada promo, mungkin 99, oke? 99 mau jualan di Shopee 99, oke? Kita kerjasama sama Ogilvy, kita rekomend, kalian harus ada di channel misalnya di Shopee-nya sendiri. Shopee, on platform Shopee, you should have a presence maybe in the banner, the first banner when you open the apps and everything. And then other than that, we should also have Facebook. So people that already is like scrolling about the promo and everything from Facebook, they can go directly to Shopee or even the Laku Emas channel itself. So we recommend the channel and then kita brainstorm sama Ogilvy, creative agency, mereka yang akan came up dengan kontennya, bannernya, visualnya, videonya, image-nya, semuanya dari Ogilvy. Jadi kita yang merekomendasikan channelnya, Ogilvy akan merekomendasikan dari visualnya.
I see. Nah, kalau berarti kan you work with other parties juga ya, and I think it's always talking about running a campaign, right, for a brand. Biasanya itu challenge-nya apa tuh, Tin? What's the fun part of it, and what are the challenges part of it?
Challenge part, running a campaign, or okay. The most challenging part, I think, is more on. It's not challenging. It's actually exciting part. Bringing all these people in one room and just brainstorm, for example, like my client, my creative agency and everything. So we know what will be the right strategy to achieve the objective. Okay, maybe the challenge is just, the exciting part, digital media keeps changing every day. I'm not saying every month, not even every year. It's like every day, setiap hari selalu ada yang baru. Di Mindshare sendiri kita punya namanya weekly update. Misalnya ada platform baru, ada feature baru, ada format yang baru, itu hampir setiap minggu, tapi sebenarnya setiap hari selalu ada yang baru dari semua channel media-media yang ada di Indonesia, di Malaysia, di semua dunia. Jadi challenge-nya adalah keeping up with the changes in the market, in the media landscape, and at the same time, make sure whatever that changes in media landscape, right, is actually meeting clients' objective. Another challenge is, I think, sometimes clients don't know what they really want to achieve in one campaign. So, for example, maybe, again, another example, Laku Emas. Junior, mungkin kamu datang ke saya ya, Kartini, saya mau mau dapat branding, saya mau jualan juga, saya mau dapat customer database juga, saya mau semuanya. Itu juga challenge karena sebenarnya dari campaign is much better if you have one single objective. Misalnya satu campaign, saya mau fokus ini aja, promo aja. Saya mau recruit orang, that's it. It's much easier for the agency to plan, karena objektifnya clear, objektifnya jelas, saya cuma mau recruit customer, I just want to create this lead, collect the leads and everything that I want to sell, my goals and everything. Then I can recommend you a very straightforward channel, and then the creative agency can create a right content to achieve the objective. Karena bayangin ya, misalnya Laku Emas mau bikin branding, mau bikin collect list juga kan. Saya sebagai creative media agency, saya there's a lot of channel that we can recommend, which I don't mind. I will recommend everything. But later the creative agency I don't know what content I should create. Because in each channel, the channel play a different role. Contohnya TV. TV kan lebih pasif ya, pasif. Yep. Cuma ada video gitu. Jadi role role komunikasi dari TV itu terbatas, lebih ke storytelling. Jadi creative agency cuma fokus ke storytelling dari TVC itu. Tapi kalau mau objektifnya juga collect leads, mau jualan emas, mau direct sale. Obviously channel yang harus yang di-invest adalah Facebook atau enggak channel-channel lain yang lebih engaging, right? Jadi orang bisa immediately participate ke Shopee, ke any other platform that you can do a direct conversion. Komunikasinya juga berbeda, nggak bisa bikin video 1 menit untuk jualan emas kan, itu terlalu lama gitu. Ya, jadi terlalu objektif. Jadi yang paling penting yang selalu saya juga rekomend ke klien adalah know your objective. That's the most important thing. What is your objective? It's very critical and very important. After that, know your target audience. Who actually target audience that you want to achieve? Misalnya Laku Emas, target audiensnya besar nih, dari saya mau target 18 sampai 65 plus ya, 65 tahun ke atas. Tapi nggak jelas nih, mau spesifiknya yang mana, karena kalau mau target semua, itu susah, nggak akan tidak efektif pemilihan medianya kalau kita mau target semuanya. Karena mungkin aja yang membeli emas itu justru mungkin orang yang 25 ke atas yang baru dapat gaji mau invest yang paling aman adalah emas. Mungkin orang justru yang 35 ke atas mungkin saya nggak mau emas, saya mungkin mau investasinya langsung yang lebih liquid aja ya. Nah, that's actually the challenge that I think clients should know what should be the right target audience and the right objective to win. Yes.
Nah, Tin, kan ada tren nih ya. I think there is a growing trend. Usually kan kalau orang talking about marketing, they're talking about brand share, terus juga voice of consumer, terus juga brand awareness gitu kan. Yeah. Tapi kan this pandemic situation ya, itu kan banyak perusahaan yang rethink their strategy. Sekarang kan banyak yang lebih pentingin, yang penting gue bisa jualan, yang penting gue dapat cash flows because it relates to the sustainability of my survivability even for my business gitu loh. Jadi anything campaign that I do, it has to generate sales. Yes. Is that true, Tini? Is that happening?
Yes, it's very true. So, baby, saya kasih konteks untuk klien saya di Malaysia. I handle few clients and all the same. Very interesting. Karena di Malaysia kita lockdown-nya mulai dari tanggal 18 Maret. Saya ingat banget 18 Maret. Semua campaign setelah 18 Maret cancel, like postpone, cut, change, pivot, everything. So immediately we change everything. We change the strategy. We change everything because the objective, like you say, is different. I just want to survive in the business. So how to survive the business? Maybe like for example, one of my client business contributornya banyak kan di offline, di retail, di Watson, di Guardian, or di offline store lah, di retail. Obviously ketika lockdown kan orang nggak bisa ke Watson or Guardian, right? Nggak bisa. Immediately pivot, strategy change, we immediately change to online. Anything we sell to online. So that's the thing that we need to adjust. Like the moment any business objective change, we immediately change the media strategy as well.
I see. Berarti kalau kayak gitu, the
Hmm.
media yang tadi kan you juga sempat mention kalau
Hmm.
TV itu kan
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
pasif gitu ya.
Hmm.
Itu mulai ditinggalin dong. Maksudnya because
Interestingly not, again ini konteksnya Malaysia, mungkin sama dengan Indonesia. Sebelum itu saya mungkin cerita dulu bedanya media di Malaysia sama media di Indonesia. Mungkin ada persamaannya juga. Jadi kalau di Indonesia saya tahu TV penetration itu 95%. Oke? Total Indonesia. Internet penetration itu cuma 64%. 64%, oke? Di Malaysia TV penetration itu 85%.
oh
Internet sekitar juga 85%. So, internet dan TV di Malaysia is actually the same. Oke. Okay? Jadi Malaysia tuh ada persamaan dengan Indonesia di mana TV consumption itu sebenarnya juga tinggi. Oke. Okay? Jadi orang masih nonton kayak free to air di sini namanya TV3, kalau di Indonesia namanya RCTI. Jadi di Malaysia juga nonton itu. So, interestingly ketika pandemi kemarin yang berbeda dalam media consumption adalah orang banyak kan nonton TV. Banyak banget nonton TV. Jadi curve-nya rating dari TV sebelum pandemik, setelah pandemik naik. Karena orang juga lockdown, stay di apartemen, stay di rumah. They cannot go to the office, right? So they cannot even go out during lunch and everything. So they got stuck in the house. So they have nothing to do except watching TV. Exactly. So we
bukan YouTube ya,
actually
bukan nonton
book
YouTube.
YouTube increase a lot. YouTube also increase. So YouTube digital and TV increase a lot. But TV also increase very significantly because karena di Malaysia, again mungkin di Malaysia perdana menterinya selalu bikin announcement. Ya, hampir kayak setiap minggu selalu ada announcement dari perdana menteri sama dari menteri kesehatan yang selalu advice what to do, apakah lockdownnya akan diperpanjang, apakah lockdownnya akan di relax, segala macam lah. Jadi semua info pertama dimulai dari TV. Makanya TV viewership juga meningkat drastis di Malaysia. Tapi digital juga naik at the same time. Yang paling naik tentunya YouTube dan Facebook. Itu naiknya significantly. Makanya kita juga media strateginya juga langsung pindah ke YouTube, Facebook, and any other digital platform.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Itu kalau pemilihan media, Tin, biasanya
Hmm.
dipengaruhi sama faktor apa aja sih? Kan tadi ya maybe
Hmm.
target audience,
Hmm.
tapi kayak
Hmm.
misalnya demographic, kemudian
Hmm.
juga geographic, location, big cities, rural areas, itu ngaruh nggak sih? Dan juga maybe socio-economic status, itu biasanya faktor-faktor apa tuh yang menentukan?
Oke, yang menentukan channel ya pertama tentunya audience. Jadi ketika kita tahu audience yang tadi, misalnya tahu nih, misalnya laku emas, kembali ke laku emas. Laku emas saya mau target 25 ke atas. Saya tahu nih biasanya first jobber gajinya udah lumayan, udah bisa beli emas ya. Jadi 25 sampai 34 tahun, oke? 25 sampai 34 tahun. Jadi saya cari tahu apa ini media consumption dari 25 sampai 34 tahun. Misal 25-34 tahun lebih banyak consume internet daripada nonton TV. Oke, mungkin TV penetration tinggi tapi lebih banyak di rural, lebih banyak orang tua segala macam kan. Jadi lebih tahu digital, fokus only ya digital. Tapi di dalam digital sendiri kan besar ya. Ada Facebook, ada Google, ada YouTube, ada TikTok, ada Spotify, ada banyak banget channel yang kita bisa explore di digital. Again, we need to know the digital behavioral of them, what they actually use within digital. Apakah mereka buka Facebook, apakah mereka nonton video, apakah mereka dengerin Spotify and everything, oke? Okay? Itu satu. Terus setelah tahu itu, again, objektifnya apa? Kembali ke objektifnya apa? Mau jualan kah? Mau bikin brand building kah? Mau lebih ke straightforward, udah saya cuma mau fokus 1 minggu jualan aja, mau achieve target saya nih, jualan emas sampai kuotanya segini. Itu juga kembali channel yang efektif untuk direct sales tuh apa. Jadi lebih principally tetap know your audience, know your objective, and then we recommend the right channel for that.
Berarti kalau buat jualan itu tadi lo
Hmm.
sempat bilang paling cocok
Hmm.
di Facebook untuk konversi gitu ya.
Conversion, yes.
Google,
Dan tergantung channelnya juga apa. Misalnya ya, ini jadinya saya kasihin nih. Misalnya nih, platform jualannya di Lazada, contoh. Saya ada channel di Lazada kan. Saya ada channel di Lazada. mau jualan aja nih, target saya mau join ini misalnya Lazada Merdeka Sale, oke, Lazada
Ya.
Merdeka Sale 17 Agustus kan ya. Eh, Target jualan misalnya 1 juta, 1 juta ringgit itu berapa ya? 3 juta, 3 juta ya, 3 juta,
Tiga miliar, 3
3 miliar,
miliar.
3 miliar, sorry
Ya.
sorry, 3 miliar. Ya udah fokus aja di situ, fokus di situ. Lazada, orang sebelum ke Lazada biasanya apa? Nonton YouTube, buka Facebook. Tapi yang utama juga Lazada kan, orang udah di Lazada gitu. Orang juga konsumsi di Lazada, juga ada banyak media yang bisa klien beli untuk conversion gitu. Misalnya
Oh,
banner.
oke, oke.
Yes, on platform. We call that as a on platform media. So you
On
don't need to
platform
go.
gitu, kalian kerjain juga tuh berarti ya?
Yes, yes, yes,
Oh, I
yes,
see, I see.
yes,
Kirain cuma
yes.
yang independent. Oh,
Nope, 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 nope. On
I
platform is,
see.
so again it really depends. So one of my clients, I think kalian tahu kan, Facebook sempat boykot. Oke, Facebook tuh sempat boykot karena dari US itu boykot. Jadi banyak perusahaan di US, contohnya Unilever, Coca-Cola, segala macam boykot Facebook, yang
Ya,
akhirnya
ya.
dikasket ke market kan. Jadi banyak market di Asia juga tiba-tiba boykot Facebook. Orang kalang kabut tuh karena Facebook tuh sangat tinggi kan, tinggi consumption-nya di Asia terutama. Nah, dari Facebook kita next best options-nya kalau emang tujuannya jualan Lazada, Lazada platform. Easy. You don't need to go to YouTube, you don't need to go to whatever TV, whatever. If the target is just to sell in Lazada, just go straight to the Lazada platform. Yes, yes.
Lazada seru ya, soalnya dia betul saya kan very very active dan dynamics
Yes.
ya.
Shopee,
Kebanyakan
Shopee juga
itu.
bisa kok.
Itu juga.
Shopee, Tokopedia. So, Group M Indonesia, kalau nggak salah, recently launching collaboration partnership with Tokopedia. Ya, jadi partnership with Tokopedia meaning, if I'm not mistaken, inventory yang ada di Tokopedia, media inventory yang ada di Tokopedia itu bisa dijual ke Group M client.
I
Gitu. Jadi
see.
sebenarnya udah open banget kok. Semuanya bisa jadi media. Anything can be channel, anything can be media. Seriously anything.
Tin kan I know kayak Facebook, Instagram gitu, mereka kan juga trying to move into commerce, right? Mereka kan bikin
Hmm.
IG shopping,
Yes,
FB
correct.
shop gitu kan. Do you think it works? I mean, how do you see it?
It works, I think, my point of view. It works for smaller business like SME. Ya, SME. The reason why, because karena brand yang udah gede, misalnya P&G, usually the big brands, they already have their own website. Okay, they already have their own website, or they already have a very strong Lazada presence, and maybe they have their own e-commerce website, right? So if they already have their own e-commerce website, they don't need this like additional support like Instagram. Like why I understand like Instagram, karena mereka juga launching untuk yang support bisnis ini sebenarnya lebih target ke UKM, usaha kecil menengah kan. Jadi si usaha kecil menengah ini yang tidak punya digital presence, akhirnya punya digital presence dengan tools dari Facebook yang memudahkan orang untuk membeli, melakukan transaksi dengan UKM ini gitu. Jadi kalau point of view saya efektif untuk UKM dan
SME ya.
dan itu sebenarnya juga nggak baru ya. Kalau maksudnya saya udah nggak di Indonesia udah 5 tahun, tapi saya selalu update lah dengan media Indonesia. Saya lihat yang perbedaan paling besar di Malaysia dan Indonesia adalah influencer ya, KOL, Instagram KOL and everything. Itu Indonesia tuh udah booming dari 5 tahun lalu. Udah booming lama banget, dan sebenarnya transaction itu sudah dilakukan dari influencer ya. Misalnya dari zaman dulu, misal siapa yang influencer? Mungkin Aukarin lah, easy example. Aukarin udah buka jasa influencer dari zaman dulu. Dia partner dengan UKM kan, small business lah, online shop, whatever. Dan akhirnya terjadi transaksi. Dan itulah the power of Instagram, dan makanya sekarang Instagram launching yang yang shop ads and everything, because mereka tahu ada opportunity yang sebenarnya sudah happening dari 5 tahun lalu.
I see. Kalau di Malaysia sendiri gimana, Tin? Influencer marketing?
Influencer marketing only booming maybe like 3 tahun terakhir. Makanya kalau dibandingin di Indonesia, itu tuh agak mungkin ya 4 tahun mungkin kalau karena di Indonesia udah dari lama banget ya. Kalau di Indonesia mungkin
Siapa
baru
tuh
lately.
top influencer di sana?
Sama ini ya, sama interestingly kalau gue boleh share, di Indonesia, I mean I used to handle like influencer like what minimum followers like it has to be 1 million, right?
One.
Ya, at least banget tuh harus 1 juta, at least banget harus 1 juta, oke? Sekarang mungkin kayak 10 juta tuh udah norm, mungkin 5 juta tuh udah norm, right? Nah di Malaysia karena kan populasinya kecil ya, 100.000 juga udah bagus. Jadi itu makanya mungkin tractionnya tidak sebegitu besar dibandingin Indonesia karena populasinya juga kecil. Makanya baru lately mulai growing karena followersnya juga udah mulai 100.000. Karena zaman dulu ya, saya ingat banget kayak mungkin 4 tahun atau 5 tahun lalu pas baru pindah Malaysia, itu influencer, followernya cuma 10.000 udah bisa jadi influencer. Like, oke, 10.000 udah bisa jadi influencer, oke.
Nano influencer ya.
Ya, ya. Back then
They
it's
call it
actually
nano.
already quite good ya. Tapi sekarang kayaknya 100.000, 1 juta lah, gitu. Gitu. Jadi udah
Personally,
growing juga. Hmm.
do you believe in misalnya you are
Hmm.
given a budget gitu ya,
Hmm. Hmm.
a certain budget, misalnya yang kayak tadi lah 1 million ringgit gitu.
Hmm. Hmm.
Itu you better allocate ke mega influencer with millions of followers. Tapi kan of course you can only get 1 or 2
One
people
hour
gitu
post,
kan.
yes, yes.
Ya, atau lu sebar ke micro. Or,
Again, kalau objektifnya misalnya gue mau impact launch aja. Pengen impact. Objektif only impact. I want impact, one day impact, that's it. Like big influencer. Okay? And kalau gue lebih pengen sustain, let's say lebih lama mungkin ya, kayak 1 bulan atau 2 bulan, baru I think mix of influencer is better karena bisa sustain gitu. Dan objektifnya juga mungkin beda, lebih ke consideration karena kalau impact kan emang harus spend 1 day or maybe 1 week the most. Kalau objektifnya mau lebih sustain, mungkin bisa di spread ke beberapa influencer.
I see.
Hmm.
Kalau streaming kayak misalnya kayak bukan streaming sih, yang lebih ke motion ya, kayak TikTok itu gimana tuh? TikTok and YouTube.
TikTok, very interesting. My favorite topic actually recently. So, I think I know someone from TikTok joining this talk.
Oh,
Hi, Wen.
hello.
I think TikTok is very. We know that TikTok during the pandemic, TikTok is actually globally TikTok is the fastest growing app. Okay, it's the fastest growing app. The usage is very high, and especially given the pandemic, also everybody is using TikTok. Okay, tapi TikTok sendiri, again, sebenarnya siapa sih yang mengkonsumsi TikTok? Nah, kita kan harus tahu ya, gitu. Mungkin TikTok growing, tapi apakah itu channel yang tepat untuk target audience kita, gitu? Gitu. Jadi salah satu klien saya tuh sempat konsultasi ke saya. Sama pertanyaannya, saya perlu pakai TikTok nggak ya? Gitu. Terus saya jawab target audiensnya apa dulu gitu. Oh saya mau target Gen Z nih 18 sampai 24. Oh that's the right platform then. Itu target yang tepat karena TikTok sebenarnya predominantly used by Gen Z. Gen Z and maybe millennials. But mostly of these two target segment. So we know that okay this target audience so we use TikTok. But again objektifnya apa? Nah klien saya objektifnya mau driving conversion, actual conversion, direct conversion. I want conversion. TikTok is not the right place yet, gitu. Karena produk yang dijual saya nggak bisa disclose ya, karena confidential. Karena produk yang dijual klien saya ini bukan produk yang bisa bukan produk makanan, bukan McDonald, bukan KFC yang bisa dijual. Oh oke, itu mungkin bisa. Tapi produk yang klien saya punya adalah produk yang butuh apa ya? Butuh long term consideration before people can actually purchase. Okay, so the decision making process is very long. Maybe similarly with emas, right? Like gold, like
Yang ya betul harus
right.
bandingin dulu instrumen yang lain
Exactly,
gitu kan.
instrument. It's a
That kind of
financial product, right? It's
investment.
a financial product. Financial product is not easy to be sold through TikTok because again, the process of you choose a financial product is a longer process. And if you just use TikTok to do the sales, it's definitely not working. So you need to think TikTok as another role. Misalnya mau building brand, saya mau punya affinity yang tinggi untuk si 25 tahun ke atas, atau enggak, atau saya mau starting educate, karena saya tahu nih yang
Education.
beli emas ya, yang mau beli emas nih nanti anak-anak Gen Z sekarang nih ya, nanti kan akan menjadi target audience saya ya, bisa punya duit, mungkin bahkan ya beberapa Gen Z sekarang udah punya duit banyak ya. Kayak mereka jadi TikToker, influencer, they have a lot of money, maybe more than us. Jadi tapi lebih ke education. Jadi start education dengan konten yang sangat relevan dengan mereka, yang engaging, yang menarik, yang fun. Along the way, then we can convert them to become our consumer.
True, true.
Hmm.
Kalau
Hmm.
misalnya, kalau gue lihat ya,
Hmm.
kayak misalnya YouTube ya, YouTube dan Facebook itu menurut gue beda strategi banget. Kayak misalnya kayak YouTube itu kan mereka kasih incentive for the content creators to basically make content sebagus apapun, nanti dia kasih duit gitu kan. Kalau sedangkan FB IG beda banget kan, kayak misalnya lu mau bikin konten bagus saja, mau konten lu dikenal banyak orang, sama dia suruh bayar malah, suruh AdSense, suruh apa gitu kan. Jadi
Do you know
totally
why?
beda strategi nih.
Do you
Nah,
know
menurut
why?
lu gimana sih? I don't know. Gimana menurut lu?
Facebook, kalau Facebook itu, YouTube anyway is part of Google, right? Facebook, their business contributor is ad revenue. Okay? Like 99% is ad revenue. So if no one spend ads, no one buy ads to Facebook, they will not make it as a company, right? Because Google, on the other hand, they have a different source of income. Okay, they have these ads, revenue ads. They have other source of income because they have a different products. Because Facebook only have Facebook and Instagram. That's it, right? Google, we have a lot. We have search. We have everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so the source of income for them is a lot. That's why when it comes to the whole business model, that's why it's a bit different with or maybe a lot different with Facebook because of that. How they structure the business, how they get the revenue and income is very different. That's why Facebook is more on the sales part, on the revenue. They just try to push people to buy more ads, while Google is a different strategy. Yeah. So recently kalau Junior ikut perkembangan juga kan Mark Zuckerberg recently juga
Dia bilang kayak size kita beda banget gitu ya.
Exactly. Even Mark Zuckerberg admit bahwa in US ya, this is only US. In US yang Google lebih besar. Amazon is the growing. Amazon TikTok is actually much better than Facebook. Even Mark Zuckerberg say himself. So that's why I think how they become like that. And I don't know whether you also notice like they also, they are questioned because of the what do you call it? They claim to be stealing Snapchat features, right? As the Insta stories. Okay, it's also and there's some leak information about that bahwa Mark Zuckerberg sebenarnya tahu Snapchat. When the Snapchat launch, it become a biggest threat for Facebook or Instagram. So that's why I think they immediately acquired Instagram. This is before they acquired Instagram. So they immediately acquired Instagram and then launched the Insta Story, which is have the similar feature like Snapchat. Yeah.
I see. Tapi kalau kini pengalaman gue ya, misalnya misalnya sekarang nih dengan YouTube orang di incentivize buat bikin konten gitu ya. Kayak banyak influencer yang tadinya ya before that di Indo, gue bisa endorse, satu kali endorse gue dapat berapa dari si brand gitu kan. Sekarang mereka kayak ini duit kecil nih, ini mendingan gue fokus bikin konten aja, nah gue dapat duitnya lebih banyak dari YouTube dibandingin gue ngendorse dari si brand-brand ini, gue dapetnya kecil. Jadi kalau gue ngeliatnya di Indo kayak ada tren nih, kayak misalnya terutama yang top ya udah dia fokus bikin konten aja gitu, dan bahkan dia nge-reviewin brand, dia nggak dibayar gitu, karena mungkin dari yang viewer dia dapetnya lebih gede gitu dibandingin dari si brandnya gitu. Itu bisa mempengaruhi. Gimana?
Tergantung follower sih, tergantung subscriber. Karena I have friends that also YouTuber. Kalau mereka nggak reach certain subscriber in proportion to the population in the country lah ya. Malaysia, I don't know whether it's relevant, it's very small number. Jadi kalau misalnya lo nggak reach certain numbers, itu lo monetize you cannot monetize first, and then once you monetize, there is a certain tier that you can only get certain income. Okay, so it doesn't
Gak segampang itu juga ya.
nggak segampang itu. Jadi yang YouTuber yang lo bilang mungkin kayak Atta Halilintar atau Baim Wong,
Iya,
whoever that yang udah followernya udah 10 juta, udah berpuluh-puluh juta. Tapi banyak YouTuber yang masih kecil, yang mungkin ratusan ribu, mungkin ya ratusan ribu is actually not a lot. It's not a lot, yeah. So it really depends, and it's being a content creator is like a brand manager. You need to build your brands over the years, okay? So I think this is also something that all people needs to know, that in digital, I think again, karena kita so far ngomongin channel ya, yang suka lupa tuh orang tuh brand, the power of brand, gitu. Kalau lu scroll Instagram, Facebook, segala macam, YouTube, banyak banget expose-nya kan, ads-nya, iklannya banyak banget. How many ads you watch per day? It's like what, more than 50 or even 100? I don't know. It's so many, right? So it's again back. The right channel is important, but having the strong brand that's relevant for your target audience is even more critical during this era. And this is, I think, something that I always tell, like as a marketer, you really need to build a brand. Because can you imagine ya, lo scroll Facebook ya, Facebook banyak banget ini. Terus kayak, oh gimana caranya gue milih produk yang mau gue beli. Lu pasti lihat brandnya. Oh, I believe this brand. I have a strong belief, I have a strong affinity with this brand, then I buy the product. Right? So for example, Shopee banyak banget seller, banyak banget market seller, banyak banget misalnya yang jualan perhiasan atau apapun ya. Pasti lu terakhirnya lihat, oh mana yang reviewnya paling bagus kan?
Iya.
Reviewnya paling bagus,
Followernya paling banyak.
It's part of the building a brand. It's part of the how strong your brand is to your target audience. So it's very critical. That's why like Atta Halilintar, siapa lagi ya, Baim Wong, Deddy Corbuzier, they're building the brand. Their name is the brand. Because people already think, oh, Atta Halilintar always a very interesting content. Then I'll go to Atta Halilintar to watch the content. Then I know that I will spend my time to watch Atta Halilintar content. It's fulfilling because I know the type of content I want to watch. Gitu. For example, saya follow-nya kan misalnya TED Talk. Jadi saya tahu, oh udah saya ke TED Talk aja, mau lihat konten, saya perginya ke TED Talk. So I don't waste any time to browse, to research and everything. Because during this time ya, research is becoming like a first thing to do before you decide which product that you want to buy. Yeah, so if you don't have a strong brand, it's very hard to cut through.
Gue pernah baca riset di mana gitu ya, kalau Gen Z ternyata span of attention-nya lebih pendek dari millennials ya. Kayak millennials can access a lot of devices, tapi Gen Z maybe only 50%. Jadi mereka very picky.
Yes, exactly, yes. They're very picky. That's true, the attention span is getting shorter and shorter. Bahkan millennial pun sekarang udah shorter kayaknya. More over Gen Z kan. Tapi tren saya yang lihat again untuk Gen Z ya, mereka not picky to the channel, picky to the content. Jadi again kontennya apa? Misalnya saya ada Gen Z nih di kantor, saya selalu tanya buka Facebook nggak sih, buka Instagram nggak sih? Oh nggak setiap hari buka Instagram. Oh wow, Gen Z tidak buka Instagram. Terus ternyata mereka follow konten, mereka nggak follow channel. Jadi misalnya mereka, oh saya K-pop devotee. Jadi mereka follow subjek. Jadi mereka follow konten. Mereka follow K-pop adanya di mana? Then I'll consume that channel that talk about that content. So Gen Z is more picky when it comes to the content. Because I think Gen Z and millennial has quite similar insight, consumer insight. It's actually starting from millennial but it's getting prominent in Gen Z. Is the authenticity. Mereka mau they don't mind like liking certain things that is different from the rest. Kalau mereka suka K-pop, ya dia follow K-pop. Kalau misalnya saya sukanya Animal Crossing, saya follownya Animal Crossing. Kalau misalnya saya follownya PUBG, ya follownya PUBG. Jadi beneran apa? Driven by the content. Dan mereka akan bikin klik sendiri.
Nah, how about gaming and esports, Tin? Itu
Yes,
kan
gaming.
juga they create their own environment kan. Ada
Yes, yes,
influencer sendiri, ada
yes.
channelnya sendiri. Itu gue
Yeah.
lihat sih very heavy di YouTube ya.
Very, very
Menurut lu
heavy,
gimana?
yes, yes.
Itu
Mm,
brand accessing that gak? Ada yang, oh gue mau dong.
um, ya, ya, ya. Obviously, karena e-sport games and everything, again, is a growing channel, especially for Gen Z and millennials. Okay, especially mostly Gen Z. They've been using mobile game and everything. They're like a avid user of that mobile game. So again, brand yang approach this channel adalah brand yang emang spesifik target Gen Z. Karena mau building brand over the time. Karena di mobile game ya, affinity-nya kan tinggi ya. Karena orang kalau di mobile game, mereka akan fokus main kan di
Focus,
mobile.
exactly.
It's like almost, I don't say 100%, but it's like very high focus and attention of that particular game. Okay, imagine it's like watching TV in those days, like maybe 20 years ago when you still sitting in front of the TV and then you watch your sinetron every day, right? Ingat nggak zaman dulu nonton Dul anak sekolah setiap hari malam
Legend
minggu,
Judy.
ya fokus kan itu lu fokus. It's the same inside.
Yeah.
Gen Z sekarang kalau main mobile game fokus. Misalnya saya ada
Very
teman main game ya misalnya 3 jam sehari. That's why opportunity for the brand is how they can integrate the brand within that game to create again brand love, brand affinity for the target audience.
Ya, ya. I will start reading questions dari teman-teman kita ya.
Ya, banyak
Ini ada yang nanya nih. Instawangs, what's your opinion about the influencer changing their charging model to something similar like CPC, CPL, CPA?
Okay. It's actually, I mean, my point of view, it has to be like that because that's the only way for influencer to survive as a channel. Karena influencer model ya, misalnya kita bayar influencer, biasanya kan bayar per post ya. Kayak di Indonesia kayak masih bayar per post kan ya. Misalnya satu post 4 juta misalnya ya. One post is like what 1,000 ringgit for my Malaysian listener. Jadi bayarnya udah, tapi abis itu nggak ada garansi nih kalau misalnya post yang itu akan menghasilkan misalnya conversion how many, engagement how many. Itu sebenarnya nggak bisa banyak influencer yang belum berani garansi itu. So in order to survive for those like influencer like Aukarin or whoever that influencer, they actually needs to change their model because otherwise it's very hard for them to survive in the media landscape, in the media ecosystem. Because karena kan Facebook aja udah bisa guaranteed, most of the channel already guaranteed. So as an influencer, I think they should. But it's a long process, I think, because not influencer are there to put certain commitment for their posts, right? Which understandably because it's a lot of factors. I think if you reach out to Atta Halilintar, I don't think Atta Halilintar can guarantee certain action, certain leads, right? Yang mungkin dia bisa guaranteed or estimate, oh mungkin saya bisa reach berapa orang, right? Bisa ada berapa, oh saya bisa bikin video 2 juta views. It's easy for them because they've been doing it, right? But for the brand, they should do more beyond whatever they've been doing it regularly.
Terus ada yang nanya nih, bagaimana cara UMKM bisa bangun branding di saat awareness masih rendah dengan minimum budget?
Content marketing. My favorite is content marketing. Try to make something is very hyper relevant to the target audience. Okay, hyper relevant, for example, hyper relevant also with the situations. Banyak it's actually what do you call that? Tips and trick lah dari saya. Karena kan saya banyak kan handle-nya brand-brand yang gede ya. Challenge dari brand-brand gede ini, mereka tuh birokrasinya tuh terlalu panjang. Exactly. Banyak banget prosesnya lah, ada global approval lah, ini approval lah, segala macam banyak banget. UKM itu punya opportunity yang bagus banget. Misalnya pandemi, new normal, you can immediately create a content that is relevant and then boost it immediately. then like, oh, if it's very funny, if it's very engaging, if it's very like, oh, inspiring and everything, people will pick it up and make it viral, and boom, that's your media already. So I really recommend content marketing for the small business, especially for those who doesn't have a big media budget. So one of example, you can create a meme maybe, or you can create an article that become a viral, or you can create a one small video that become a viral. But the power is the content itself. You need to have a very very strong content. Jadi misalnya kalau jualan mau jualan apa ya, jualan tanaman, misalnya jualan tanaman nih, gue mau jualan tanaman gitu. Bikin mungkin konten yang menarik tentang tanaman itu gitu, yang cocok dengan pandemik, yang orang bikin, oh pas nonton, oh lucu juga ya, dan gue akan share. Gitu.
Tin, konten itu, I mean, it's very interesting nih. Konten itu relate to person or a process, Tin?
Content, a person. Content is the storytelling. You want to tell a story through a content to the person that you want to talk about, right? So that's the purpose of the content. You want to tell something to that person. So it's about the person.
I mean, for me as a brand or for you as a agency, itu it's a person. I mean, you have to have the person who is very creative. Or it's a proses yang actually bisa dibikin. Misalnya, aduh gue nggak punya orang yang kreatif gimana gitu loh. Ini bisa nih, ada prosesnya gitu loh. Kita brainstormnya kayak gimana gitu. Nah, itu gimana?
So, I'm sorry, I know where you're coming from. I think we both the same. We are finance people. We're coming from accounting. Unfortunately, in marketing, there's no such thing as an accounting system. There's no working formula on what would be the right process to follow to create a content. I have these questions coming from my clients, past clients before. How to make a viral content, Kartini? And I'm like, there's no formula for that. There's no like this A plus B equals to viral. Because if we have a formula, everybody will make a viral video, right?
Yep.
Everybody will become viral. But the reality is not right. So it's not about the process, actually. There is a certain basic process that you need to follow, but it doesn't mean like you follow this step A, step B, step C, then voila, you become a good content creator. No, but it's just understanding what's happening in the market, and then you create content from that. So I think my advice also, listening to what's happening in the happening in the situations and everything. Contohnya apa ya? Mungkin ada contoh di Malaysia. Jadi bioskop itu baru buka banget nih di Malaysia. Jadi lockdownnya kan udah mulai relax, jadi bioskop udah mulai buka. Tapi di bioskopnya itu nontonnya nggak boleh berdampingan. Jadi ada yang selang-seling gitu kan. Nah, bioskop provider tuh macam 21 Cineplex, namanya Gold Screen Cinema in Malaysia. Mereka bikin konten yang super very funny and relevant, like hello, like something like very localized local lingo, like people can, like a slang, like normal slang that you talk to people. Hello cannot, like you cannot sit like next to each other and everything. It's very funny. It's very funny. I cannot really explain it now, but if you see the visual, it's quite funny, and people share organically because the type of content, the type of copy they use is very local, very relevant, and people can relate, and then they just share it to everyone. So I think that's the thing. It's just like the listening, like what's actually happening, and you create a content coming from that understanding of what's happening in the market. That's it.
Yep, agree with that. How about Twitter, Tin? Ada yang tanya juga nih tentang Twitter.
Twitter, okay. Oh my God, Twitter. Twitter is a very US-based channel, if I can say. Right, mainly used by obviously the Americans. Again, this is my point of view. The reason why Twitter is very high in US because I think Americans have a lot of things to say, right? Right? Like they always use Twitter just to share the point of view. Very opinionated people. So it's the right platform for those kind of things. But in Asia, people don't really use that as that. People use it like, some people use that as, form a strong opinion about something and then they just tweet it. Tapi banyak juga yang di-abuse sebagai, kayak trolling people, bullying people, and then they sometimes use Actually, Twitter is one of the channel that other than Facebook that is often abused for the elections purpose. Jadi misalnya pas
Political campaign.
ya for political agenda. So for example, I know like in Malaysia, uh, pas election kemarin tuh ya, itu banyak 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 orang yang bikin fake account and then start creating this news, this rumor, uh, siding this person, siding that person, you know that so it become misuse in that sense. So it's a effective channel to have that kind of controversial subject, to amplify that controversial subject because it's very fast, but it's still not the right channel for brand building unless again you have a very strong content. Karena Twitter ya itu sebenarnya apa tuh pace-nya lebih cepat daripada Facebook.
Very fast.
Very, very even like million second lah. Jadi kalau misalnya mau invest di Twitter, first tips punya
Harus
Twitter.
kontroversial.
No. First punya tweet. If you want to build a positive brand, you need to have a Twitter agency that can monitor every single thing. If you don't have that, don't even bother of doing Twitter. Karena lu harus men-tackle semua komen-komen negatif segala macam. But if you want to build something controversial, then go with Twitter.
I see. Tin, gue belum nanya tadi di awal, I miss. As a accounting graduate,
Oh, okay.
you see as a benefit or as a disadvantage working in the industry?
It's amazing benefit. Is
In what aspect?
for me. In one aspect, it's more understanding. I think the commerce part of the business part of the media, because it's when you learn accounting, when you learn like you understand the whole finance, you can read, you know, balance sheet, you can read all the financial report and everything, right? So it's very helpful to assess, especially I think let me start with me lah. As a media planner, when I have that degree, I understand my client better. Karena klien ya, walaupun mereka briefnya tentang oh saya mau brand awareness saya segini, but behind that brand awareness mereka punya business goal yang mereka harus achieve kan. Mereka harus achieve salesnya segini, mereka harus achieve revenue-nya berapa. It boils down to the financial goal that they need to achieve. Okay, but then we try to build the brand metrics to achieve that business goal. So having that business acumen is very helpful. Then you understand your client better, like, oh, okay, I know where she's coming from. I know that you want to achieve this goal, you want to achieve this, you want to protect your profitability, you want to achieve this. So it's easier to talk to client in that sense because client always talk in this in this business lingo. So that's one. The second one, I think, is again media. If you know, in what do you call that? Media is one of the biggest marketing spend within marketing because it's a part of promotion, right? Jadi misalnya nih gue punya sebagai klien gue punya budget 1 juta ringgit nih, 1 juta ringgit. Oh, mungkin berapa 3 miliar ya di Jakarta. Biasanya budget medianya mungkin 80% untuk media, 20% untuk kreatif. Because you don't need to pay creative that much, okay? Nah, 80% dari media budget is a lot of money, right? So you need to manage that money very wisely. So it's like what do you call it? Cost accounting. You manage your budgets and everything. So I think my cost accounting was really helping me when I started a career as a media planner.
I see.
Yeah.
Very good. Tini, it's almost 1 hour. Always nice speaking with
Good.
you after a long time. 1 hour is very short. Sounds very long,
short.
but it's apparently very short.
Yes.
Thank you buat teman-teman yang udah join. Anything you want to say to our audience, Tini?
Apa ya? Stay safe. Please wear your mask. Take care. And I think at the end of the day, apa ya pesannya ya? Ini I don't know what to say. It's like I think just stay open mind with whatever happen in the society and everything, because everything can be created as an opportunity. Seriously, every single thing you think that this pandemic, oh my god, my business is impacted. Oh my god, I cannot meet my sales target, I cannot meet my KPI, I cannot meet my quota and everything. No. Don't think like that. Yes, you are, but you can always pivot your strategy. You can always pivot your business strategy to become more sustainable in the long run. So it's just don't lose hope and hire a good agency to to help you doing
Of
that.
course, hire Kartini,
Ano
romance
lah.
ya. Tapi harus ada budgetnya dulu.
Yeah. Yeah, you need money to make money.
Of course.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
It's been awesome
you.
and see you guys in the next episode of Gold Talks. Nanti juga yang episode ini kita bisa tonton lagi di YouTube. Kita ada di YouTube
Hmm.
Gold Talks ID.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Tini.
you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Stay safe. Bye bye.
Stay.